All right. At least this gives me something to do with my hands. Hey, everybody. My name is Marc. I'm an alcoholic addict. I've been sober my final sobriety date, I guess, or if you want to call it, May 15th, 2007. Thanks. I say that I struggle remembering that date. I don't know why. I remember that the day before was my niece's birthday, and I went out and got high. But I don't know, the dates or numbers are bad for me, so I tattooed it on my leg, so that helped. Adam and I have quite a bit of past together. Never using or drinking or anything together. I met Adam in AA. You've got more 1-year coins than anybody I know. To be honest, I tell that story to a lot of people, which, hey, it doesn't matter how we get there, but we all got there. My story with Adam being my employee, Adam bailed on me on probably the most important day in a bar's career, when you're an Irish bar and it's St. Paddy's Day and your dishwasher doesn't show up. So no resentment there anymore. At the time there was, but yeah, Adam, when I hired him, I said, don't put me in the position of serving you. I don't want to be there. A week later, he sat down at the bar and wanted me to pour him a beer. And I kind of looked at him and I said, you know what? You've made that decision to already sit here. You've come in front of me of all people. So I said, you've made it. Here's your beer. It's not on my shoulders anymore. And great. One of my best friendships. I probably don't ever tell you that or tell you that enough, but you've got a great friend when you can not talk to them for a month or 6 months and come back and they're right there for you. And that's what it's been a lot for us, I feel like, in sobriety. My story, I was first drunk when I was 12. I was talking with relatives. It was at my aunt and uncle's wedding dance. I was 12 years old. I was at a relative's wedding this weekend, and we're sharing that story because all of us kids that got drunk for the first time were there. And we finally told the aunt that got married that was the first time I got drunk. I think I was probably full-blown alcoholic by 16. Very functioning, though. I was always functioning. Always kept jobs. Was able to work, but I needed booze to do those things. By 16, I had gotten my driver's license, got a secured buyer that bought me alcohol whenever I needed it. And that was kind of how I kept my addiction going. I kept straight A's in high school, was a 2-sport athlete, and drank every night. My dad my dad's an alcoholic, still an alcoholic. He was sober throughout my childhood. I think he collected coins and I think he went to meetings, but looking back and realizing he always had Sharps and he always had Budweiser in his vehicle. And I think he combined the two to make people believe that he was sober. He wasn't around a lot. He worked a lot. He wasn't around a lot for my activities. He was there for our family, but he was also very active in his addiction. He's 77 now. And I just pray every day that I don't get a call that he's in jail again, because this summer we put my mom in a nursing home for Alzheimer's disease, which gives him free rein to kind of do whatever he wants. But I never got into drugs until college. I went to UND. I do not regret any of those decisions. UND was quite a place. I remember my college suite mates. I don't even think I'd even seen drugs. I came from a small town in northern Minnesota where it was, if you had drugs, it was hard to get drugs at that time. I'm 44, so that would have been mid-90s. And my suite mates were from Minot. And I guess drugs are easier to get in Minot because they sure brought a lot of them. And I immediately started trying them and fell in love with them. And shortly thereafter, my freshman year of college, I was asked to not come back after that. The college decided that a 0.8 GPA was not good enough to maintain enrollment there. And so I moved back home. Worked construction for a few years and moved down to this area which is I was just turning 21, and that's when I really started to, my drinking and drug use really went full speed. I found a job the day I turned 21, I went and applied for a bartending job, and I got a job bartending because I knew I needed to be around alcohol in order to functionally use alcohol all day long. For some reason, when you're working in a bar, they don't mind if you drink the mistakes, and you can make a few mistakes every hour or so, and they didn't care. Shortly thereafter, I found methamphetamines, which is a large part of my story, but I found when I sobered up, I was extremely ashamed to talk about it. I come from a part of where I grew up, alcohol was very accepted. Drugs were not. And so I just hid behind alcoholism. But meth was probably one of my most favorite addictions that I had. And I hate to say it that way, but if any of you have been there, you probably understand. I never sold. I manufactured. I helped people manufacture. I stole product to help manufacture anything that I could do to feed my addiction. I loaned out my car for weeks at a time for people to take it and do what they want. I remember going to a job interview with my vehicle smelling so bad like anhydrous that I had to park at the end of the parking lot and leave my windows open and hope to God nobody walked by it. I mean, just crazy things that you'd never think of as a sober person that you would do. But I did. By the grace of God, I got out of that. I was into a point where I was living in my brother's basement. He did not know about my drug addiction. He knew about my alcoholism. He was doing everything that he could to try to help me. I think just help me, stay alive. But I was living in an unfinished basement in the corner of a just concrete floor and concrete walls with a pile of dirty clothes this high and a mattress on the floor. And I was just lucky that he was willing to take a few $100s rent so that I could, feed my addiction and just keep doing what I was doing. I got out of meth before I died, but also before I ever went to jail. I had a lot of close calls with a lot of different people, and all of those people at some point got caught, got busted, something. I ended up quitting meth because my dealer stopped dealing to me. He said, "Mark, you've got too much going in your life, and I'm not going to be the one that pulls you down." He's a good friend of mine. We still stay in contact to this day. He's sober. He went to jail for dealing. I think he spent 5 years in prison for it. But he stopped me. I was so angry. I was so angry at that man. But something there made me, as far as I can remember, and I do struggle with some memory things every now and then, is that I don't remember horrible crashes off of meth. I don't remember fiending for it when I was gone. It was almost like him saying he wouldn't do it anymore, gave my body the okay to stop it. Also, maybe the cocaine helped it a little. I found cocaine for a little while there, but cocaine never did it for me like meth did. Meth was a drug that allowed me to drink more. Meth was a drug that allowed me to work better because I was, I could function at a job under the influence in different ways. And I was able to quit it. I didn't find my sobriety until I found out that my girlfriend, who became my wife and is now my ex-wife, was pregnant with my first daughter. We found out we were pregnant, and I was 27 years old at the time. And I kept telling myself, okay, I got to slow down. I got to save money. I've got a kid coming. I've got to get out of my brother's unfinished basement and find a living space that I can raise a family in. And it seemed like I would do well and stop during the week A weekend would roll around and I'm like, okay, well, we got one night to party. Might as well make a big shing, a big deal of it. Go get an 8-ball and drink. And then I started drinking heavier. I started drinking more I never was a blackout drinker. I was very rarely a blackout drinker. And I just started drinking harder and using more drugs because it was almost like, well, this is going to be the last. This is going to be the last. She finally had enough and said, I don't know if there's a future for us, but if you want anything to do with this child, you need to change your life. And something when she said that flashed back to my dad and my dad not being around at times when I needed him. And I told myself, I can't raise a kid, or I can't allow somebody else to raise my kid. And I did what I thought was the best. And I said, I'm going to go to an AA meeting. I asked my brother to come with me because I knew if he didn't, I would have went and sat in the parking lot and watched everybody walk into the meeting, and I would have waited in my car until I watched everybody walk out of the meeting, and then I would have drove home and said, yep, I went to a meeting and everything's good. I jumped into AA thinking that, okay, if I do this for a couple weeks, shit should all kind of quiet down at home and I can kind of go slowly get back into what I was doing and what I was good at. I should back this up. Prior to that, about 3 months prior to me quitting, I was starting to have health issues from everything. And I went into the doctor, and the doctor wanted to draw blood, and he said, I need you to abstain from alcohol for 12 hours so that we can do blood work. And it took me 2.5 months to get 12 hours so I could go in and get that blood work done. I got the blood work, and what we thought was true. My liver was not functioning well. I was having health issues from it, and it was getting to the point where it was starting to affect my organs, and I was fine with it. I was completely okay with it. I looked at it like, well, this is the way I'm going to go down, so let's just go down with it. And my own health didn't make me want to stop. Fast forward to where I'm now put in a position of, well, do I want to have anything to do with a kid that is mine? And that got me into my first meeting. Now, my first meeting, I showed up in the most raggedy clothes that you can imagine at the Tupperware building, NPG, which at the time was basically a shirt and tie type of meeting. I thought I was walking into a wedding. And of course, I stuck out like a sore thumb. I was shaking, I was withdrawing, and 4 or 5 guys came and said, do you mind if we sit by you? They came over at the break, said, do you mind if we just sit by you? And I didn't know any better. I said, yeah, Then they asked me if I'd go to coffee. And I had no idea who these people were. They go to Hardee's on Main for coffee. And I said, yeah. They said they'd give me a ride home. My brother took off. I got there. My sponsor, who's my sponsor today, it was almost like I was the new guy, and everybody was crowding around me. They wanted to shake my hand. They wanted to do some service work. And my sponsor pushed his way through. His name is Dooley. I'm going to say he's about this tall and about this wide and a very, very scary looking person. And he came up to me almost with a finger in my chest and said, I think I could help you stay sober, and I want to be your sponsor. And I didn't know how to fucking say no to a guy that size. So I said, okay, what does that mean? And he said, he means you do whatever I tell you to do. This is kind of how he said it. I didn't know any better. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll try this out. He had me sheetrocking garages for people that I didn't know. He had me going to meetings in South Dakota, sitting in the back of a Suburban with 4 chain smokers in the front, and I'm not a smoker. I remember I bought a sports coat for this meeting, and I was stinking, like I was so mad, so angry because I'm mad at these people for ruining my sports coat. All these things and when I questioned him later, like, why the hell am I sheetrocking somebody else's garage on a Saturday when I could be doing something else? And he said, because it's service work and it's keeping you out of your own head. I didn't realize as much at the time that my own head was just as big of an enemy for me as drugs and alcohol were. We've probably all been there where we get to a point where your mind just spins and you can't get off of that thought or off of that. I just let me use it just one more time. And you don't know how to get away from it. I sobered up in a bar, working as a bartender, and I was told by my sponsor that I needed to quit my job in order to stay sober. And I said, I can't do it. I said, I make too good of money and this is what I do and it's what I know how to do. I don't have a college degree. I'm a hustler, I'm a worker. And so at our home group, I was told I had to bring gum for every person in 2 rows, which was probably about 30 plus people every meeting until I quit my job and got a new job. And 2 years later, I'm sitting at a Tuesday meeting and I'm passing down, I'm picking up 5 to 6 packs of gum every week and I'm passing down gum and my sponsor looks down and he goes, "Are you still fucking handing out gum?" And I said, "You told me I had to hand out gum every Tuesday until I get a new job and I still have the same job and you haven't told me that I can quit yet." And he kind of shook his head, but I'm like, I took everything that he said seriously. I've gone into a lot of AA meetings before where if I would have been my first meeting, I probably would have never gone back. There was a lot of meetings that I didn't like. There was a lot of people at certain meetings that I didn't like. There was just the ways, and looking back, could it have been my mood at the time? Maybe, probably. But I know that for some reason I went to a Tuesday meeting and I went to that meeting first because I believe God pushed me in that direction. Like I said, I bartended then for 6 years, almost 7 years sober of my sobriety. I knew going in there that I couldn't stay anonymous very long. I couldn't stand behind a bar that I used to drink at every day, and the people that were buying drinks from me that I would drink with and look at them and say, "Sorry, I'm not drinking today," without giving them a reason why. So the anonymity of the program for me was really never there, which has helped me. It's what's kept me sober, because if I stay within myself and I don't share, I distance myself from people, and I find myself getting into my own mind more. When I get out and I share it, whether it's on social media or it's in person or it's just meeting somebody on the street, it keeps me accountable. I lost my job as a sober person in that bar. The owners felt like I was working too much. They were paying me too much, so they fired me. I didn't know what to do. I got charged with a disorderly conduct in that time. Sober, 6 years sober. I punched a guy in the face with my 2-year-old daughter in the back of the car, because stupid little high schooler didn't like how I was driving and decided to cock off through the window of another car. And I kind of felt like I taught him a lesson. That lesson got me charged with a disorderly conduct. Luckily at the time, because of where I worked, in the bar that I worked in, I served a lot of police officers. They knew that I was sober. They came over to my house when they got the call. They asked me what was going on. And I was able to plead it down. Basically, it was if I didn't, I paid a fine, and if I didn't have any other charges in the 6 months, it would go off my record. That's stuff that I used to do drunk and using, not stuff that I felt like I should have done sober. And luckily, it didn't drive me to using or drinking. It just drove me to making bad decisions. But I share that because sobriety doesn't make my life perfect. It makes it far from perfect. Sobriety allows me to face the problems that I have now that I normally would run from or would go to use and just avoid. I went right to work at another bar in downtown Fargo, where I became not instantly, but a month later, I became a manager, and I spent a good portion of a few more years there. And like I said, I've seen a lot and been through a lot being in those bars. But being around it, I think, helped me stay sober. It didn't make me ever want to drink again or use again. It helped me to see what I could be like every day. And I met a lot of great people and still know a lot of great people from those areas. I'm a social butterfly, if you want to call it. When I lost my job, I was used to being around 100 or so people a day, and now I'm isolated and I'm by myself. And I went into a pretty large depression until I found another job and was able to kind of dig my way back out of it. But I got blessed after that as well. A friend of mine got into real estate, and that's all right. A friend of mine got into real estate, and her boss was looking for more people to put on their team. And she said, I know this guy. I think he would be great. I went and kind of did an interview with him, I guess, sort of say. And I decided I was going to take the plunge to go get my real estate license. A lot of things happened. It took me about 6 months. A lot of things happened. I got my real estate license. I got into real estate. I ran into a mentor. Mentors. That I was able to sponge off of. I literally followed this man around. I sat in a car with him for 8 hours a day. And all I did is I had a little notebook that I kept in my pocket, and I wrote down everything that he said and everything that he did and talked about when he was interacting and doing his deals. And when we got back in the car, I'd flip back and say, okay, you said this, 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 and this. What did you mean? How does this work? And I was able to learn from one of the best people in this town as far as real estate. When he branched off and started his own company, I was one of four. They are now one of the top, probably the top agencies in North Dakota. But I was able to become the lead of one of his departments. I was averaging about 100 houses a year selling for him. And I stayed there for close to 6 years. Like I said before, I don't have a college degree. I feel very lucky that I was able to get put into a position, and the real estate industry is very much like the bar industry. There's a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of socializing involved. And I was worried going into it, not knowing if I felt like I had the tools to protect my sobriety. I did not know if I would be accepted within the community. And this is probably all in my own head, but if I would be accepted into a community that this is what people do. There's a high ratio of alcoholics, and there's a high ratio of divorces, which I'm both now. But I was with that company for a lot of years, and life changed, and I decided to go out on my own, which was one of the hardest things that I've done since my sobriety. I was in the middle of a divorce, going through a lot of changes, and I decided to let go of my security blanket and basically my paycheck and go on my own. And if any of you have ever been your own business owner or been your own employer, there's no money coming in. There's no paycheck. There's no health insurance. You're basically saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to figure out how to feed my family. And I got home. I had my office of 6 years in 2 cardboard boxes, and I set it on my kitchen table. And my house had just looked like it had been robbed because my ex had just come through and taken all of the stuff that she wanted. So the house was destroyed. I had my kids for the first weekend after we had basically split, and I was sitting on my kitchen floor bawling, crying. My kids not knowing what was going on because I was having a panic attack. I was breaking down. And luckily, I called my sponsor, and I said, I don't know if I've made any of the right decisions in my life as of lately. And he said, you sober? I said, yeah. And he said, you probably are then. You're probably making the right ones. So I was about a month away from losing my house, losing my car. because I had no money. I had no money coming in. I get pretty emotional when I talk about that year. That first year of sobriety, or that first year of being on my own in sobriety, when I look back and I look at the people that I was able to help buy or sell their houses, they all have a story that they were put into my path for a reason. State's attorneys, youth pastors at churches, people that I thought would look at me and judge me because of my past or because of the mistakes I've made, but people that open arm came to me and accepted me and let me help them. They helped me more than I probably helped them. And now, like I said, I'm on my own. I've got a few agents that work with me and are underneath me, that I mentor, and I try to help just become better people. And I don't know where my next check or my next paycheck's coming from sometimes. I think God kind of keeps me in that path because I work better not knowing. When I get comfortable, I get complacent, but it still seems to work out. And I know I wouldn't be there if I was still using or drinking. Like I said, I've got no college education. I've got I've got about 7 years of college, but I've got no education from it. I spent a lot of time, I could be a doctor, but I spent a lot of time just spending money, getting tattoos and drinking and using. So, I never came to a treatment center. I was scared of treatment centers. I was scared of getting locked up. I've been locked up, not for very long. I've been to the center back then, but I was scared to go to treatment. I still think about that today, and I'm not really sure why. I think it was the stigma behind it. Even though I'm open, I'm on the board of directors now for another treatment center. And I think it was the stigma back then. I was still in my stubborn way. I didn't want to be locked up somewhere. I didn't want to be stuck somewhere. I wanted to be able to come and go on my own accord. And I didn't know if I could do that in a program like that. So I just said, I'm going to go to AA. At least they let me leave AA meetings. I'm going to stick with AA, and I'll find this and I'll fight through this and I'll do it. My cravings went away after I did my 4th and 5th steps. I'm not here to preach that program by any means, but that program saved my life. I didn't realize it, but when I made a list and I made amends, after that, I didn't have my cravings anymore. It's been 15 and a half years, and I get asked the question, well, don't you think you could drink? Don't you think you could have a couple? Don't you think, you're a different person? And I know what could happen. And what could happen is a bottle of Rumple Mints and a lot of Coors Lights is what could happen. And that would turn into quite a few days of mistakes. So to me, it's not worth it. It's just not worth me going through it. I find other ways to deal with my stress. I ride motorcycle. I work out when I can. I stay pretty focused with my family. Those are things that take my mind off of the problems that I have. But I've also come to realize that I have mental health issues. And I was most likely self-medicating through most of my life because of it. And I go to a therapist to deal with those issues. And the cool part about it is I'm not scared to admit those issues. I handed a guy $20 the other day that I could tell was struggling on the side of the street. And he broke down crying when I gave him $20. And this is, I think, was a great example of God putting people in my path. I drove by that guy when he was on the opposite side of the street to go wash my car. I was struggling with gratitude for the last few days, thinking that, why is work slow? Why is this happening? Why isn't this happening when I want it to happen? And I drove by this guy. I went to wash my car and buy a tie for the wedding. And I drove by this guy, and when I went back by him again and I handed him $20 and he started crying and he said, "You do not understand how much this is helping me right now." And I said, "Is there anything else I can do?" And he said, "Just pray for me." And he was, in my mind, most likely under the influence of some drug or struggling with his mental health. And as I drove away from him and I told him I'd pray for him, I broke down crying. And I said, what a fucking asshole I've been, complaining about my life, driving around in a newer vehicle, going to buy a tie and not having to worry about the $30 that I was paying for the tie, when this guy, $20 basically just made his day. And I don't know what he used it for. I don't even care. I don't care if he went out and used it because he needed to get drugs to help him stay through that day, or if he went and used it for food or whatever. It didn't matter to me. What mattered is that in a little bit of a way, I touched his life. And I've been blessed with the ability to do that because of my sobriety. I've had a lot of friends die in this. And I struggle wishing I could have helped them. But knowing that obviously I just can't be there for everybody, and I can't force somebody to want their sobriety or to go for their sobriety. Yeah, today is a great day. I have the ability to go, and I visited a friend in the hospital before I came here, and I'm able to come here on my own accord and share with you and not shake and not hurt because of my addiction. And I'm able to be there for my family tonight when we have supper. And that to me is a good day. So I don't know. That's what I got. So